guys? It's another episode of Live at 9:45. I'm tuned in. I'm ready to go. I saw a question already. Do I have the bugs worked out? I hope we do. And so I have Matt waiting to come on the camera. But first off, I want to introduce him. We're interviewing Matt Kett. I'm that guy from the forums, and pretty excited about this. I've been following him for a long time, and he's always a great person to talk to. I met him last summer at East Coast, and it was a good time. So I'm going to bring him on the camera, and we'll get this thing started and move through the questions. So thank you all for joining in, and got a couple buttons to push here, and he'll be in with us. Okay, so just waiting on him to come in, and we should be good to go. I got a bunch of you guys coming in. I saw Jason Page, Dan Hickson just came in. Who else is in here? Ryan, Haas Pickett, Mike, whole bunch of people. Do a dance. Not much of a dancer. There we go.
Hey,
oh, it's freezing.
Hi, everybody. No, I'm kidding. That was me. I was making a joke.
Oh, that's good. Because
yes,
when we were talking the other night, it was a little back and forth on the whole freezing thing. So
yeah, it seems to be pretty solid here.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for being on, Matt. And we can just get this thing started right away here. My first question with everybody is to tell us a little bit about yourselves for some people who don't know you. Give us some info.
Sure. Okay. My name's Matt. I've been in this hobby for, I don't know, 15 years probably in sort of a serious capacity. I live in Toronto, Canada, so I'll speak a little slower for everyone, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, married. I don't have any kids, so I have lots of time for tiny trucks. My day job, mostly spend my time working in music videos, television commercials, short films, stuff like that. So that's a little tiny bit about me.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you very much. About how long have you been in the RC hobby?
Well, like I said, roughly about 15 years or so. But taking this sort of scale accurate part of the hobby seriously, probably about 8, 9, 10. Yeah, probably 10.
Okay. What or who got you started in this hobby?
Gosh. I can pinpoint my love to early teens. I used to be into model trains, and model trains was sort of like, I don't know, the be all end all for me. It required a lot of accuracy and a lot of fiddling with tiny bits and pieces. And I remember going to a hobby shop to go pick up something for my layout, and they had one of those TV VCR combos, and it was showing the Tamiya Monster Beetle on a loop. It was just constantly running over and over and over again. And I was like, oh my God, that thing is incredible. I have to have one of those. Like, that for me was the moment that I think I was bit by the RC bug.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I remember one time I went in the hobby shop and they were showing monster trucks just on loop. They're just going back and forth, and it was all these like E-Maxes and T-Maxes, and they're like jumping all this stuff, and I had to pick my jaw off the floor, but I understand how that could definitely draw you in for sure. What was your first hobby grade RC? Was that the one? Did you buy it after watching the video, or?
No, I was 13, so I had like no money at all. But I had all kinds of time. Now I've got no time and all kinds of money. No, I don't have tons of money, but I've got enough that I can put towards the hobby. So I think that my initial hobby grade RC would have been, I think it was like a TT01, like one of the first gen ones, and it was just an on-road. Yeah, I think it was an Alfa Romeo. You'll remember the kit. It was like a red, weird-looking Alfa kit, and like everybody had one of those. Saying that everyone says I'm a little bit choppy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly see if I can switch to LTE and to see if that makes anything better. Okay, hang on one second.
All right.
Should still be on there.
Yeah, you were coming through choppy on my end too, but nobody was saying anything up until there, so I figured you must have been coming through good for them. So I wasn't gonna do anything about it, but. Now we're on pause. Hey, people watching, am I coming through clear and it was just Matt, or was it both of us? Oh no, where'd he go? He'll be back. Okay, so the other night when we tried this, we had a little bit of an issue, and there he is again. I knew he'd come back. All right, he's coming back in. But the other night when we tried this, we did have a little bit of an issue, so I knew that this could be a problem. I think we're going to be good. Oh, look at that. That's so much clearer. Yeah, that's way better.
What if I do? No? Okay, good.
Yeah.
That does sound better. You sound more live now and less on record.
Yeah, like you were pausing and chopping in and out, and I was missing things, and I didn't know if it was going that way for everybody that was watching, but you're much clearer for me now. So
excellent, good, excellent. We're back in business.
All right,
let's start this thing over again.
Yeah, honestly, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay, all right, cool. Very quickly, Matthew Kett. I've been in the hobby for roughly 15 years. First hobby grade RC was a Tamiya TT01. And I think Chris had it right. It's like the 155 DTM or something. It was an awesome piece of kit. I loved it. It was like my favorite thing ever. And then before that, it was like the Monster Beetle that I was totally into. Yes, now we're caught up. I think we're caught up now.
Awesome. That sounds good. If you weren't in this RC hobby, what do you think you would be doing with your free time?
There's free time?
Well, hobby.
I don't have any of that. Gosh, I don't know. Slot cars, maybe?
Okay.
No, I don't think I'd be into slot cars. You know what I'd be into? I'd be into drones, I think, but mostly just flying them into the lake. That's my bag. I love doing that.
Well, I mean, there's videos where you can fly them in and under the water and back out. So I think they've got
the wrong kind of drone then.
All right. I'm guessing I already know the answer to this question, but my next question is do you like the big tire trucks or the small tire trucks, and why?
You know, most people might think that I don't like big tires, but I do. I've got all kinds of big tires. Look, I got some big tires right here. Look at these.
Those are huge tires.
These are massive tires. I love these things. Does anybody want them? Because I can't do anything with these. No, I prefer the small tires, but I'm not averse to larger tires. I think that there's a little bit of room for every size tire in this hobby.
Okay, that's a very good answer.
But you know, my follow-up, if you will, is that the small tires are much more realistic, and there's nothing I like better than sucking terribly in a competition because I decided to go for small tires over large ones.
Right. That's always a good plan. That's kind of how my Class 1 trucks have gone. I build like the worst performing truck I can possibly think of and then attempt to muddle my way through a course.
Yes, exactly.
It's frustrating and fun all at the same time.
Because that's why I got into this. It's not because I wanted to have fun. It's because I wanted to hate everything about it.
Right. You just wanted to get really mad and then super excited when you do something that everybody else did just fine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, why can't I do that?
Gotcha. All right. So my next question is brushed or brushless motors, and why?
Okay. Well, I'm probably most of my trucks probably have brushless setups. And I think that's because they're a little more maintenance resistant. I don't have to do a lot of maintaining. I can run them in pretty much any situation and not have to worry about them. That said, there's nothing quite like a good brushed motor. You know, like if you really want to go for a good dunking and you want to get something just really super underwater, you know, if I want to drive at the bottom of a lake, I'm going to do it with a brushed motor.
Yeah, I mean, you must really like lakes. There must be a lot of lakes by you.
Yeah, there's massive lakes here.
All right.
All I've got is lakes. No, to be fair though, I think that there's room for both in this hobby. Brushless has come a long way in a short amount of time. It used to be that brush was the only way to get the really low speed, but high torque, and now it seems like the brushless systems have come a very long way. I mean, what Tekin and Castle are doing, it's pretty incredible stuff, and I'm happy that I'm in the hobby now and not like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I've only been in like 6 or 7 years, and from the time I started until now, it's like a whole nother world.
Yeah.
So, do you compete in scale-related competitions, and if so, what is your favorite one?
I do compete. There's a few out there that I like a lot. I think the East Coast Scale Challenge has been one of the sort of the standbys that's always been a really great time. My business partner, Richard, pardon my noob, he and I have been going to that since the very beginning. And yeah, it's one of the ones that I wouldn't miss. I think I've only missed it once in the, 5 years it's been running, right? At least that. So that's high up on my list. What's nice about it is that it's always been class 1, class 2, class 3 friendly. And they added class 0 last year, which really, really chuffed my Gulliver. What else is good? I love Team K&K. I think that TTC out in Ohio is phenomenal. It's honestly, on being that we're both on the East Coast, it's probably the premier event on the East Coast. And I mean, if you're getting the guys who, you know, run Axial Fest, you get them coming out to that event, you must be doing something right. I mean, the way the Kirby's have set that up, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the only big ones on this side of the country that I haven't made it to, and it's on my list. I might make it this year, but I don't know. So
yeah, if you can, and if there's time, definitely make that a priority because it's a good event.
Awesome. What was your first styrene build ever?
Oh, well, I don't have it anymore, but it was a Volvo C303. And get your Googles ready because it's not a very popular or good looking truck by any means, but it's basically a box, and that's why I chose it. Yeah, there weren't a lot of curves. In fact, I think there's like none, so it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy to do it, and it was one of those things. I actually did it for a competition on the Scale Builders Guild before it was the Scale Builders Guild. It used to be a site called Crawl Canada, and it was a sort of like a build off where everybody does something and they get judged on it later by people in the fields of this hobby. And I don't remember if I placed or not, but for me it was more of a learning experience and going through what it takes to work with styrene, because it's a different medium for sure. That all of that kind of combined, it was probably one of my favorite trucks, and it's one of those things that you kind of look back on and you regret selling, because at the time it didn't mean much, but now it means a lot, and I kind of wish I still had it. So if you know anybody out there that has it, I'll pay a handsome price for it.
Right. So if you're watching and you have it, contact Matt.
So I want it back.
How many trucks would you say you have built at this point?
Well, built. Let's see. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's been a lot. I was trying to think about this one in advance because I wanted to have a good answer, but it's probably like fully scratch built, not that many, probably 5 or 6 scratch built ones. But built or owned in general, there's dozens. Yeah. There's probably a dozen behind me right now, actually.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that kind of happens to all of us. It's kind of like an addicting hobby or something.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the coolest things that I saw recently was I watched your video on styrene stuff, and it was from last year at this time with the USTE stuff and all of that.
Yeah.
And so your statement about boxes kind of was from that video and so on and so forth. Do you have any other like tips or pointers that you could just like chuck in real quick for someone who hasn't seen that? That like, where do you start? Because I mean, you're well known for building, and so like, where do you start this process?
Right. Okay. Well, styrene is an interesting compound to work in because it offers you a lot of flexibility. It can be sanded, it can be bent with heat, it can be layered up and then contoured. You can use it for just about anything when it comes to this hobby, and it's not really that complicated. It's all about thinking in 3 dimensions, and I think that's the stumbling block for most people. It certainly was for me, and it still is. But it's like, how do I build up something and then know that I have to get these curves into it afterwards? And I mean, there are multiple different ways of building and different ways of achieving those end results. But I think the biggest tip I can give, and it's a really simple one, is that you just kind of have to experiment, and you have to practice, and you have to try things. There's no tried and true way. I mean, there's the basics of it is, score it with a metal ruler, create the shapes that you want, build it up in a few layers, and then sand it down and then bond it all together. Those are the basics, but you'll never get to that next level if you're not trying these things. Right. And with that, this is my other tip. Don't buy styrene at the hobby shop. They are ripping you, well, the hobby shop isn't ripping you off. Evergreen or Plastrect, those guys are ripping you off. You can go to a plastics industrial supplier. There's one around the corner from where I live here. You can buy a 4x8 sheet of .060, which is sort of the main sort of thickness that I use, for $24. Like that alone is, that's like what they charge you for a little 9x12 sheet. It's ridiculous. So if you're going to experiment, you're going to try, and you're going to have some fun with this, buy it in bulk. And then if you don't like it, you can sell it. You can easily sell it.
Yeah, there's lots of people out there looking for it. So if you got a good price on it, you could totally sell it.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say are some of the necessary tools to get into the custom work, the styrene work, that type of stuff for someone who is brand new to this? Like they have the normal like drivers and stuff. They can take their truck apart, put it together, but they're like, I want to build something cool. What are the next steps? Like, what are the next tools?
Okay, I'm going to show you because I have them all in front of me because I'm in my workshop.
Nice.
You need a hobby blade, just a number 11 hobby blade. This works fine. You can also use a box cutter, whatever sharp edge you've got on hand. Like Josh Theed Harley said in his video from the build-off this week, just make sure not to cut your fingers off unless you live here in Canada where we have free healthcare. So definitely a hobby blade. You'll need a metal ruler because a wooden ruler will get cut by this blade. Obviously.
Go to plastic ones, FYI. Same
thing with plastic. Don't use
styrene.
Don't use a plasticine ruler either. Those are useless. Some glue. Now that's a little bright, but this is Micromark same stuff. It's basically a bonding agent, and the main ingredient is methyl ethyl ketone, which is a very toxic substance. So don't drink this. But bond your styrene together with it. That works very well for that. That's it. That's it for the basics of tools. Honestly, I mean, I've got some like goofy things that I use from time to time. Like I have one of these things here, and this is like when I have a pattern and I want to draw a big thing onto a piece of styrene. I just rub this, like I put the pattern on top of the styrene and then just roll this along, and it creates all these little dots in the styrene. So you have a very nice line that you can trace. It's like connecting the dots, or you know, paint by number really with one of those. I've got a selection of clamps that you use when you bond the styrene together. I also find this a pretty helpful tool. This is a metal square. It's quite heavy.
Yeah.
And this is great for making your 90 degrees. So, you know, you always get a nice, clean, straight edge in a perfect square. So have one of those if you can. Gosh, what else do I use on a regular basis? Well, sandpaper. That's a good one, right? You need to sand things. Yeah, that's about it. Really. I mean, those are the basics to get started with styrene.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
When you go to start a build, what type of materials do you source? So like you just said, don't go buy like a bunch of little pieces of styrene, go buy the big sheet. But do you, so if you've been to a hobby shop and you've looked at styrene, you know that there is like different varying pieces and like channels and square tubing and round tubing and and all kinds of stuff like that. Like what do you pick out and how do you determine that?
Oh man, well then that stuff sort of depends on the build that you're doing. Like I've got aside from the styrene that I buy in bulk, I've got a couple of selections of rod and tube, things that are going to be good for filling gaps. It all kind of depends on what you're doing, but the basics, I guess, would be like a few tubes, a few rods. Square stock is great because you can kind of contour that to make other shapes. And it's great for building up layers and also reinforcing joints. So stuff like that is useful. Yeah.
Perfect. How do you find a truck to build? Like, where does your inspiration come from when you make that decision? Like, I'm going to build that one. Like, where's that?
Nowadays, it comes from Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah, like I follow all kinds of different types of things. Like I was going through and I saw a Pinsgauer. I don't know if you know what that is. Fire up to Google. It's a German truck. It looks a lot like a C303. Again, it's very boxy, and it's sort of like a 70s era truck. And there's a guy running around in one in the US, I think, and he uses it as like a mobile sort of medical unit. And when I saw that, I was like, ooh, I got to build that. And then I found out that one of the guys from the Scale Builders Guild already contacted him and is doing a tribute build of that truck. So
nice.
Small world. Yeah, but it's definitely Instagram or Google image search. I do a lot of that. Like in the day, if I'm bored, if there's nothing going on, I'll just go, let's look at Baja trucks today. And, you know, I'll just find images that way.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like my process. So I literally type weird trucks or weird off-road vehicles because I genuinely just like to find different stuff that nobody else sees. And those are like seriously my key terms, like weird off-road truck or weird four-wheel drive or so that's kind of, it's interesting that you said Google because although other people do that, like they've other people are gaining their inspiration in other places as well. And so it's interesting to hear other people's versions of that.
Yeah, for sure. There's nothing better than just typing in red Dodge, you know?
Right.
Or red Ram. Let's find what a red truck looks like today. But honestly, it's the best resource, really.
It is.
There's a good site, findatrailer.com.
Yeah.
That's a really good one too.
That's the one that Scott Lempert said. He's like, I find almost all of my builds off Find a Trailer.
Yeah, definitely a good one. That's funny because I didn't actually listen to Scott say that. So that's two people who like that site.
There you go. Everybody go to Find a Trailer to find your builds. Or bring a trailer, not find a trailer.
Oh, bring a trailer.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Correction. We've got it now. All right. When you do your builds, are you more of a precise measurement kind of guy, or are you like a build it big, sand it to what looks good?
I'm a little bit of both.
Okay.
I do my best to find actual blueprints to start from. And if I can't find those, I'll go to Wikipedia and look up wheelbases and length of trucks and whatever other specifics I can find, and then get as many pictures from as many angles as possible. Preferably one that's, you know, straight on, so you can get a nice profile. That's really super important. And then what I do is I take those images that I've found off of the web, and I take them into Illustrator and I scale them to the scale that I want to work in. And typically that's 1/9, because as Richard, pardon my noob, told me, I don't know, 9 years ago, the Hilux from Tamiya is 1/9 scale. It's not 1/10. And 1/9 just always kind of seemed pretty good. It's good. It's a good size, and the wheelbase works for most of the scale trucks that are on the market already.
All right. What is something that when you do a build, you just can't leave off of it? Every scale build must have this thing.
Gosh, that's a really good question. I gotta like look at all the trucks first to make sure that I have them. Wheel hubs. They all need to have wheel hubs for sure. That's something I don't like seeing those nuts. You know, the 4mm nuts. I don't like seeing those.
All right.
Additionally, usually an interior. I need to have an interior. Yeah, or an SPG sticker. Yeah, that's a good one, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, kind of necessary. How do you plan a build from start to finish? So you've got this idea. Where do you go from having an idea to now it's done and I can drive it?
Okay, well, I source all of my images first.
Mm-hmm.
I build a folder on my desktop on my computer and just toss things in as I find them, or then I sort of just, I don't really start assembling bits and pieces. That sort of it sort of comes as it needs to be done. I'm not great at making lists, but I do make lists. I don't have any around me, but they're horrible. It's like that one sheet of paper that sits on the side of the workbench, and I love checking things off, so I make a little box beside each thing I need to do, and I check it off as I go.
Right, and you write down things you've already done so you can check them off right now.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, well, that's already done, so I feel like that's completed tonight. So most of the time spent down here is spent quite literally just looking at the list and then looking at the project and going, okay, all right, yeah, that's something I got to do. I'll put that on the list.
Right.
That could go on for months, honestly. Yeah, I don't. It's terrible. I'm not a very good planner, but my most important thing is to work to a deadline. I set myself a hard, firm deadline, and I make sure that it gets done by that day. But I don't know. It sort of starts with, okay, let's build the chassis, get the wheelbase right, put the axles on, set up the links or set up the springs or whatever kind of build it's going to be. Start mocking up my body by printing out all of my templates. Stare at the thing for another few hours. Cut out some styrene, start building it up, and then it kind of steamrolls from there. And then it's, 6 months have gone by and it's done. Or in the case of some of these trucks, a year has gone by.
Right. It definitely is a long process sometimes. And sometimes
it is, especially when you're building something that's never been built before or doesn't exist, right? Like when you're building a body from scratch, it takes a bit of time. That said, all that time is totally worth it by the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely worth it, and it's really rewarding at the end when you see that you actually did something and you pulled it off. So that's the best part.
Yeah.
When you build your trucks, do you operate on a budget, or is it more along the lines of like, it needs this, so I will give it this?
Yeah. in most cases, it's whatever it requires. Let's get it done. Sadly, that's what takes the longest, I think, is assembling all those parts. Like, for example, on that half track thingy back there, that was a labor of love and a commitment to finishing something I started.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I guess I could just put this in there, but really it's going to require this if I want it to actually work. So yeah, it was not a budget friendly build.
Mm-hmm.
Like not many people go out and buy a Hanglong 16th scale tank only to never use it as it was intended. Just like I got it home and I cut it apart. So yeah, not a cheap build, but certainly one that I'm proud of.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. Like I saw it at East Coast and like had to pick my jaw up off the ground, and then I drooled over it some and took some pictures, and it's super
dumb.
Cool.
It's pretty dumb. Like it works and it works well.
Yeah,
but it's a stupid looking thing. Look at this. It's ridiculous. But yeah, it works, and it's pretty fun to drive around.
Yeah, I mean, it looked it, and it definitely did work, and it worked better than I thought it would work from looking at it. Like the tracks worked good, everything worked the way it was supposed to. I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of time. So to get the tracks to do what they're supposed to do, that's intense.
A lot of staring. Of staring.
Yeah, I know where you're at. I've done a lot of staring on some builds. So my next question is, do you prefer the forums or Facebook social media type stuff?
I think this is sort of the answer you're looking for.
I mean,
yeah.
I could have made an assumption, but
yeah. No, I love Facebook. No, it's a necessary evil, right? Mm-hmm. And it's something that as a forum owner, it's something that we have to embrace, right? So Richard and I kind of made a commitment that we would try to post at least one thing that had never been posted before every day on Facebook. And the purpose of that is to hopefully point people in the direction of the forum so we can get people posting their builds there. And there's nothing quite like being able to read through a forum build. And
right.
I don't think that Facebook has anything even close to that works in kind of any reasonable fashion. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like one day, here's the picture of my truck, and then the next day, you'll never find it again.
Yeah.
So at least with a forum, there's a real community aspect to it that I think is missing on Facebook. Additionally, it's just a great way to communicate with like-minded individuals. And it's nice to have the Facebook page, but man, oh man, if we didn't have the forum, I don't know what I would do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that makes sense. I think that one of my favorite pieces of the forum is that you can start at the beginning of the build and you can see the process and how someone ended it. And so by going on there, you see that. And on Facebook, you see so much cool stuff. Like it's information overload, like truck after truck after truck that are super cool. But I don't know how you build it. I don't know what you did to get there. Doesn't. So I understand what you're saying completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, there's just one thing I wanted to address here in the questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Michael was asking if there's a pizza oven in the works on that blue Jeep. And what he's talking about is that thing right there. And no, it's not a pizza oven, Michael. Although that would be a nice treat. No, it's you can fire up your Google. It's the Loco Hawk. So you can look at that, and yes, it is steam powered, and I'll be doing something about that later. Hi, Dan. Hello, Dan. Hello, Dan. And that's it. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to get those out of the way.
Oh, so I have an add-on question. Jason Page wants to know if he's allowed to use hashtag I'm that guy's Uncle Bob as his handle.
Yeah, sure. You can change that to. Wait, no. on the forums? No,
I-
absolutely not. No way. No way. Uh, he can change it to I'm that Larry's brother. That's the only one I will accept.
Okay, I mean, so there's your answer, Jason. You can be that Larry's brother, I guess. So
Yeah. That Larry's brother.
that's your info.
Yeah.
All right. So between yourself and Richard, so Noob, the two of you run Scale Builders Guild. We did talk about it a little bit, but do you want to just give a tiny little piece of what exactly that is? There's probably some people who don't spend a lot of time on forums,
Sure.
maybe running across this video. What can you tell them about it? Why
Yeah,
should they
sure. Well, okay. So first of all, Richard and I run the forum, and we're the co-owners. We're admin as well. So
Mhm.
ban hammers for everyone. But there is also a very hardworking mod team made up of Headquake, Wrencher, Deluxe, and gosh, there might be one more that I'm forgetting, but I don't think so. I think that's the core of them. And between them and ourselves, there's a nice little internal community, and we make sure we're keeping on top of stuff. So that's the team. I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah.
And what the Scale Builders Guild is let me see if I can remember this word for word. The Scale Builders Guild is a purpose-built forum with one thing in mind. No, that's all I can remember. But what it is, it's a great place for anything scale related. We're not just tiny trucks. We're drift. We're monster trucks. We're Baja. We're anything on or off road that you can build as an RC model. That's what the Scale Builders Guild is for. And not only is it a great community and a great friend-based community where, you know, we all get along and we share a lot of the same goofy jokes. It's such a great repository of builds going back a decade. There is some fantastic stuff in the archives that very rarely gets pushed to the top anywhere because people don't comment on them. And I don't want people to. I hate necro posting. But there's some great builds in there, and there's some of the masters have come and gone. Some of them are still there. Like we've got Headquake builds on there. We've got Scott Lempert's builds, who his screen name still confounds me. It's not anything close to that, but it's Joe 122, right? Is it Joe 122? Or is
honestly, I'm not sure.
Shoot, I think it is Joe 122. He'll tell me if I got it wrong. All of Pardon My Noob's builds are on there. There's some killer builds, and Wrencher's builds are great. There's a guy who is still on there, but he isn't active anymore. Big Bird. He did one of the first really cool Toyota trucks that I remember seeing, and I was like, yes, this is it. This is the place. And it's pretty great. I'm pretty happy of the community that we've built and the people who have made it their home. And I can't thank those people enough. Hey, there's Sergeant Branham there. He's definitely one of the top guys that we see a lot of stuff from. There are so many people on there. It's Two Beers. Two Beers is another great guy who does some incredible stuff.
So if he's watching, I would love to talk to him. You're more than welcome to come on.
Yeah.
So
Have you seen that Model A that he did? Ridiculous.
I think I missed that one. I need to get in.
Oh,
yeah. I won't lie to you. I've spent time building and doing other things, and I've been off the forums for a bit, so I need to dive back in. All this talk about it has me missing it like real bad.
And the great thing about it is that once you get to know sort of the regulars, you can sort of feel there's a vibe and there's a good kind of camaraderie, and we're all sort of, you feel good about posting there.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to speak for other forums because there's other great forums out there. I think that they all have their positives, and just like ours, we have our negatives, right? We don't have a giant community, but it's a good community, and I think that's where I think our kind of our tipping point is.
Yeah. Nice. So thanks. And if people don't know what the forums are, like, it's worth the Google search and go check it out and browse through, because once you start reading, you can't stop. I mean,
Yeah.
days and days and days of information. So my next question kind of goes in a different direction. What is your best piece of advice for a scale newbie? Like, just bought your ready to run truck, you've got it, you're running it. What's your advice?
Well, I think the biggest question that I hear from people who are just getting started is, what should I upgrade first?
Yeah.
And my response to that always is, don't upgrade anything. Get used to the truck as it is. Play with it as it is. Learn how your truck operates.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe start thinking about what you want to change. But my piece of advice for somebody getting started in the scale aspect of it,
yeah,
is to read everything you can on the forums. There's so much depth there, not just looking at pictures of other people building, but great tips and tricks. Like we have a huge section on how-tos, and there's a lot of stuff in there that will get you started. But I think most importantly, you have to love what you're doing, right? This is a challenging hobby. And I think the biggest barrier for people is that they think it's impossible. It's not. It's not impossible at all. This is just something that requires patience and practice and effort. And that's why I don't think you see, and I'm not being facetious here, but you don't see a lot of 12-year-olds and 15-year-olds doing it, right? You see guys our age who have had some time in it. And
mm-hmm.
the best advice I can give, though, is don't be discouraged. I think that this is a great hobby, and it requires time and effort and patience.
Yeah. So I agree completely. I think that one of the things that I notice is that people who are doing it and have been doing it for a while kind of rise up the ranking-ish type thing, if you can call it that.
Sure.
It really isn't. It's just that you know all of the people now. You didn't do anything any better than you did before. And by taking more time on their builds and paying more attention to things, like I couldn't do 90% of the stuff that I can do now when I started. I mean, I glued things together. My trucks looked like garbage. I didn't care. They were just fun to drive outside in the woods. And then when that started to wear off, I did another piece and another piece of the puzzle and another piece and another piece. And that's where we end up. And so
it's a constant learning experience. And for the record, I don't think I'll ever be done learning. And if you are done learning, then I think that you're probably done with the hobby, because there's always something new and there's always something different out there. And it's a never-ending struggle to choose what I'm going to build next. Because honestly, dude, there's a list of 50 things that I want to do that I know I'm never going to get to.
Yeah. I hear you completely with that one. So on to our next question. Who are your influences in the scale crawling segment of the hobby, the scale community? And if you were going to pick someone to like say, hey, this person should be on the show, who would you pick?
Okay, well, my number one influence was probably Headquake. I think Headquake was the guy that got me sort of hooked on taking this seriously as an art form.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of this world, and he and I, he's not far from where I am, so we have a lot of opportunity to hang out. I haven't seen him in a while. I owe him a visit for sure. But his builds are on a different level, not because they're super accurate, because it's more because they're art.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really gets me about what he does, is that he's got a brain for creativity like nobody I've ever met. And his stuff is just mind-blowingly good. And he was definitely number one. And then number two is Pardon My Noob. He consistently blows me away with what he's capable of. It's just, honestly, it's ridiculous how his brain works and how his attention to detail is completely off the scale. I'm not sure if he's watching or not, but I definitely think he's one of the top people in this hobby, without a doubt, and somebody that I look up to, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
And if I had to pick somebody to be on the show,
Yeah.
I'd go with Two Beers. If you can get him, I think he'd be really great. I think another great guy, and he's from the UK. That would be Fourth Protocol. He's on our forum, and he does some kick-ass builds, and he does them in a different way from anybody
Awesome.
that I've ever seen. So definitely check him out if you can.
Yeah, I will be looking into all of that for sure. And like I said,
Awesome.
I need to spend some more time on the forum because it's been a minute, and I feel like I've missed out on a lot of stuff. So I need to get over there. But this is probably the hardest question I ever ask people. What is your favorite build out there that is not yours?
It's not a hard question. I've got like 5 trucks that I would love to have. There's a few that I would love to have back because I bought them from the original owner and now I don't have them anymore. Anyway, it's Richard's 4Runner. He bought, I think it was a first gen or second gen 4Runner, and it was not that great. He loved it and he made it his own, and then he did a miniature version of it, and it's completely accurate to the real truck. Everything down to like the floor mats and the grease stains and the crappy interior fabric that he used to cover the seat up again. It's honestly, it's outrageous. That's the one truck that I would really love to have, but he'll never sell it. I promise you that.
I don't think I would either. So
No, it's pretty killer. It's pretty killer. If you haven't seen that one, that's worth a look for sure.
yeah, I agree. Do you currently have any sponsors? And if you are sponsored, why have you chosen to represent those people?
Right. Okay. This is sort of a tough one. The Scale Builders Guild has a lot of sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be fair for me to claim that any of them are mine.
Right.
Am I sponsored by anybody? Not well. I mean, outside of Night Customs on a personal, I'm that guy level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say I'm on Night Customs team. I'm also on the GCM racing team, and I should shout out GCM racing. Chris was on your show, wasn't he?
Yeah, Chris and Dana both last week. So.
And I missed it. What an amazing show!
No, they were great. It was awesome.
I talk to those guys all the time, so I don't need to hear them talk anymore. No, they're fantastic guys, and what they're doing is so key for this hobby. It's something that definitely needs to be mentioned, and I should have mentioned it earlier. They are phenomenal. They do some incredible stuff. Their chassis are ridiculous. I've got a C-Max down here that is going to get one of those MFAB 4Runner bodies,
Mm-hmm.
The new 5th gen one that came out. So that'll appear on the forums soon enough. Hey, back to the question. How about that? Night Customs and GCM are official sponsors of mine. I have a great relationship with Axial on a social kind of level, a media level.
Yeah.
I always go to Axial Fest every year, and I'm part of the staff when I go. So I'm always helping them.
Mm-hmm.
They support the website and support us with sending us a lot of trucks to review and do videos of.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great relationship with Vanquish. Chassis? Who says chassis? It's a chassis, man. Oh, you must think okay. Right, it's a chassis. I also drive a saloon. What was I saying? I have a great relationship with Vanquish as well. They're huge supporters of what we're doing here at the Scale Builders Guild, and I'm big supporters of the push they've made towards going in a more scale direction with some of their stuff. So I mean, there's a ton of others. It's a long list, but it's sort of more of an association with the Scale Builders Guild than it is with me on a personal level.
Right.
I like to keep that as separate as I can because I don't think it's fair for me to be posting in the forums, and especially on other forums, things that come from some of the vendors and some of the supporters that the Scale Builders Guild has. So it's a touchy question, and I'm cagey about it because I don't want to be that guy.
But you are that guy.
Hey, speaking of Vanquish, oh, what's this right here? Look at that.
Oh.
Huh? Neato.
So now everybody that is watching, all 37 people, are incredibly jealous of you.
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous of me too. Actually, it's an honor to have one of these for sure.
Yeah.
It's not done, but it's getting there. Man, this thing is ridiculous. Honestly, I was around when they started machining them, and you should have seen the blocks of aluminum that were going in, and then the little tiny pieces that were coming out. It's like that. It's like that old cartoon where they're making toothpicks and they start with like massive trees and they just go, and then they pull the toothpick out. That's what it kind of was like.
I believe that one for sure. My final question for you is kind of along the lines of, what should we expect to see next from you? Like, what's coming down the line?
Right. Okay. Well, the Ripper obviously will be coming down the line. And then that the Loco Hawk has to get finished for K&K at the very latest. It's an engineering challenge because it actually is powered by steam. It's not just a joke. It's like full on. There's a steam engine in there, like a miniature steam engine, and it's a challenge, but it'll be there. It'll work. It's proof of concept. It definitely does its thing, and it's going to be pretty hilarious to watch drive around.
Awesome.
What else? There's a Trailfinder 2 Marlin crawler down there that's had some modifications done to it, so that'll be class 1, I believe, for this year. And I've converted a SCX-10-2 to a GCM scale accurate drivetrain,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna get done at some point. And it's a Toyota Trekker. You can get your Google fired up for that one. It's a goofy build, and the back half is actually a Pardon My Noob resin cast, so that's pretty neat to have that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple other things. There's a 70 series over here. There's that 5th gen 4Runner that'll be coming shortly. Richard and I both got one, and he was kind enough to do all the assembly for me, which is very nice of him. I'm probably not supposed to show it, and I don't think you can see it over there, but I do have one of Axial's new Blazer or C10 bodies, which is getting a paint job and some modifications. So that's certainly coming. Gosh, golly, I don't know. Is that enough? No, there's more. There's also that Honcho budget build that's still going on with me and Harley, and that's certainly been very fun to put together and think outside the box on a little bit. God, I hope that's it. I sold off a lot of stuff this week because I couldn't do it anymore. The projects were piling up and I needed to take a break. Yeah. So I limited it to 8 projects. Terrible.
Yeah, but I was bad, and I'm like 3 or 4 deep. So
yeah, there's a lot going on. Plus, I should probably make sure my bomber still works. Oh, Michael says. Oh, did I? Oh, I forgot to. Did I say RC 4-wheel drive for one of the companies that is sort of a close relationship? We got a good relationship with those guys too, and they've got some more stuff coming apparently, according to Mike. That's not it, dude. And then he blew me a kiss, so that's nice. Nope, no more kisses. All right, fine. Yeah, so and then it's more about just kind of keeping the Instagram and keeping the social media going, and getting out to as many events as we can this year and supporting as many as we can. There'll be new bumper sticker sets coming soon. I already blew through the ones I had, so if you didn't get one then, you missed it. But we'll do some more comedy very soon on that. I think that's it. Maybe hats. Maybe we should do some hats this year.
I like that steel hat for sure.
Yeah, well, the patches were a big hit. People like patches, so maybe we can put hats on them or something. I don't know.
put hats on the patches?
Yeah, inside.
Oh, yeah.
Inside the hat.
Right.
Oh, Berkeley. Yes, I will be at Berkeley, Brian. I didn't get a ticket, but Dana's going to let me play anyway, I think. And then I think there's a recon. There's a recon coming, isn't there? Or is it Parker Fest nowadays? I can't remember if he's changed it over.
I think he's maybe in the process because I've seen some of both going on recently. So,
Don, I already talked about K&K, but I didn't mention their Scale Class 0, which I think is going to be pretty fun. We've got some interesting things planned for that, and I was honored to be part of the planning process on that. So thank you, Mike, and thank you, Don, for getting me on that. Okay, I think that's. I'm running out of time already, and it's like February. I'm freaking out, guys. You made me all freak out. I'll get it done.
I believe it. So,
all right. We'll see you at RC 4-Wheel Drive's East Coast Scale Challenge. Yes, no, yes?
I will definitely be there.
All right.
I'll be there all weekend and camping and all that fun stuff. I'll be there. I'll be at KOG.
Oh, Kangaroos. Yeah, Richard has a great time at that event.
Yeah. Are you coming this year?
That's an excellent one. I don't think I can make it. I got a very tight budget this year, and with Axial Fest on the calendar, it's that's a big expenditure for me.
Yeah.
And then there's USTE as well, which I attended last year and had a great time at. I think it starts this weekend.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Yeah, the RC Attic crew was driving down, so I've been.
Oh wow.
Their progress. So.
Nice. Yeah, there's a few guys from up my northern way that have made their way down. I know the GCM crew is down there already. And I know, Christopher, I should be in Florida, but something had to give this year, and it wasn't going to be my wallet. So it's unfortunately it's really expensive for all this travel, especially over the border. It tends to add up pretty quickly. So I have to limit the number of things I can do.
All right, man. Well, thank you for being on and answering the questions. I truly appreciate it, and I think people were pretty interested and paying attention. And I'll scroll back through for everybody who was watching and kind of respond to some things. I don't always respond to them along the way because it kind of screws up the flow of what's going on. We got some chances to do that at the end, which was nice. But I will definitely scroll back through. I usually do it right at the end here. Okay. Other than that, I just want to say thanks, Matt, for being on. I truly appreciate it. It was an honor to have you on and ask you a bunch of questions, and it was great. So thank you.
Well, Adam, thank you very much for having me, and I hope that the people that were watching got something out of it. And are these posted later on so you can watch them back?
Yes. So what happens is it will stay on this page, and then I will share it to the Vanward Customs Facebook page, and then basically I will begin a process of sharing it in like a dozen places, and it'll kind of bounce its way around. And so for anybody who wasn't watching and kind of picked this up, I'm doing this every week live at 9:45. I'm trying to make sure that I have people lined up in advance and interview someone new weekly with no definite endpoint. So if you know someone, if you want to suggest someone, I'm sending messages to all kinds of people because I want them to come on. So I have some big names coming. I'm looking for, to be completely honest, I'm looking for some smaller names. I want to find somebody out there who's doing something really, really cool, who I can put on this type of a platform and be like, hey, check this person out. Look at the stuff they're doing, because that was one of my original goals with this, and I didn't know that it was going to keep going up like this. I didn't know that I would get the level of people who were interested as I am, and I want to make sure I hit some of the smaller people, because that was my original goal.
Right on. This has been really great. I had a really great time. I'm gonna keep hitting this like button a bunch here.
Perfect. I'm going to talk for a few more minutes, and then I'll flip my screen and I'll sign you off, Matt, in just a second, and kind of close out that way. But so other things I want to talk about, I have Brian Parker coming next week. He will be on. Harley, Josh Steed is coming on. I'm not sure which date. If you guys check it on the stuff, that's coming. I got Ikaika Farrier to come on. He is awesome. He's one of the coolest people I met in the last year. I met him at KOG, and we had a blast, although we were like super flooded and using floaties and stuff. But and so the list is kind of endless, and I'm searching out new people all of the time. So like the Facebook group if you aren't already a part of that and aren't in that, because it will alert you when new people get posted, when new videos come up. Hopefully in the future sometime we'll be able to figure out the communication between Facebook and YouTube, but I want to stay true to the Facebook part because I like the live feed. Other than that, thank you guys for tuning in, paying attention, and watching, and thank you, Matt, and I'll let you go, and then I'll kind of flip it out and do that. So
Peace. Thanks, guys.
yep, thanks again. See ya. All right, so Matt is gone. I want to thank him one more time and just say thank all of you for tuning in. Check out the Live at 9:45, hosted by Vanward Customs Facebook page. Do all of that stuff. If you feel inclined, you can check out my website, vanwardcustoms.com. It's not only trying to sell you stuff. There's cool stuff on there as well. Some media links to some of my builds, a build log, and stuff like that. And I keep editing it and updating it all the time. So either way, check it out. Don't check it out is fine with me. I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and hopefully I see you guys again in the future, and enjoy my little outro thing here right now. Thanks. Have a good night.